Never before has Star Wars been in the situation in which it finds itself today. Lucasfilm now owns a property where there is not a single person working in their studio that fans trust any longer. We have much coverage coming in regards to Dave Filoni and how bad Ahsoka has damaged the brand, a brand that was already plenty damaged enough. You didn't have to dig a deeper hole. Well, there is no way out of this hole, it seems, unless there is a wholesale sale of Lucasfilm in terms of personnel and getting the folks in leadership out of there. Let's dive in now today to this very new situation and what might happen to the folks in charge who have really put this galaxy in a place it has never been before. With Dave Filoni now having lost all respect of the majority of fans out there, after the abysmal Ahsoka finale, a series that went nowhere, it now seems that fans are beginning to figure out that there is literally no one left at Lucasfilm they can trust. Not a single soul over at Lucasfilm. Yes, when The Mandalorian came out, everybody was excited that perhaps Jon Favreau was the one to redeem this franchise from what had been a series of terrible films by Kathleen Kennedy, the sequel trilogy and the periphery films around it. And so when Jon Favreau came in, everyone said, well, those were really bad, but maybe The Mandalorian can help us at least have the flavor of Star Wars. Things devolved, though, with the firing of Gina Carano, and I know some would take umbrage with the term firing there, but when Gina Carano was let go and was not given her own series, and when that was done ceremoniously, and then when the tenor and the flavor of the series for all the Star Wars shows changed dramatically, we don't need to remember the Book of Boba Fett. That was bad enough. It seemed like we were all kind of stumbling about saying, what's happened to Jon Favreau? Now, I think we've come to the conclusion Dave Filoni has essentially taken this thing over, and there's nothing left. There is no new hope at Lucasfilm. And so what I want to ask you guys is, when there's no hope left for this studio, for this franchise, what in the world is Disney going to do? Because everyone is walking out.
Well, I think that's a really awesome summation. And I don't know if I fully agree that there's no hope left. And, I wrote an article about it on That Park Place, actually, about how I think there is a path forward for Star Wars and for Lucasfilm, but it involves basically Lucasfilm doing the exact opposite of everything they've done in the last decade. And I don't know if they have the fortitude right now, especially not with Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni in power, to do it. Like, you would need a clean slate. You would need to lure Jon Favreau back, basically, somehow. If there's any way that you could get George Lucas involved, like even just his name, just to say, hey, he showed up on set. Because you remember when they sent out those photos about George visiting the set of The Mandalorian and how he approved of Baby Yoda? That really seemed to resonate with fans and people. Like, you can't, just in the same way that Star Wars is arguably about the Skywalkers, and I know some people disagree with that. They point to shows like Andor and whatnot, but the real meat, the real meat of Star Wars is the Skywalkers. And just like that, you can't really divorce it from them, and you can't really divorce it from George Lucas either. And they've done a lot of that over the past decade, of really distancing themselves from him. And so I think the only way to gain credibility back is you get George involved again somehow, some way. Is that possible? I don't know. But I mean, that's the only way as far as I can see.
All right. And rest of you on the panel, what do you think? I mean, is Star Wars beyond hope at this point?
I think that Star Wars as a franchise is suffering from basically what the entire Disney company is suffering from right now, in that the people that are in power right now want to completely eradicate the past.
Yes, I think they've put that into the mantra. Yeah.
Like they do not want it to exist. So it's like bringing George Lucas back. They don't want to do that. Like staying true to Walt's vision. They don't want to do that.
Yeah.
They want a completely new path forward. They want to rewrite history. I mean, honestly, is there anyone left in Hollywood and any writers left that even understand the source material? Do they understand the story arcs, the character arcs? Like, do they even care? Like, I don't know. And I truly don't think there are. I think Hollywood, and maybe hopefully maybe this is something that's going to be teased in the upcoming show, but it's just completely broken. Like, there is no creativity anymore.
So you're saying that Sabine being a Jedi, the second that she uses the Force, probably not a good indication that Lucasfilm cares at all about their lore?
I mean, I think I got to go back to a meme I believe that Lorena posted. It's like, or maybe it was Valiant, like, you're a Jedi, you're a Jedi, you're a Jedi, the Oprah meme.
I think at this point, R2 is a Jedi. Everybody's a Jedi. You're right. 3PO, Jedi. Jar Jar, Jedi. Everybody's a Jedi. It takes away all the power from the idea of the Jedi.
Well, it also breaks the universe in much the same way that the Holdo maneuver does, because Sabine, like, we followed her, right? Like, you saw her entire arc in the Rebels cartoon. Then we saw her in Ahsoka. She barely had any training, and yet at the very last instant, notwithstanding the bit of training that she did with Ahsoka, she was able to basically, pull an X-wing out of the swamp the way Luke did, and by shooting Ezra off into that Star Destroyer. But
Luke, I'm telling you, Luke never did anything even as impressive as throwing a leaping human being who will die if you fail this.
And so when you again, like, this is the problem that I have with all of Filoni's shows, especially Ahsoka, Mando season 3. When you watch it and you look at it at first, and you see Hayden back and you see the key jangling and you think, oh wow, this is really great and blah blah blah. But then you stop and you think about it and you think, well, wait a minute. In the larger context of the Star Wars universe, if it was that easy for anyone to be able to gain Force powers, like, the Empire would have to eradicate half the population. Like, it's basically like you go to the gym for a couple of months and suddenly you can levitate things. Like,
she leveled up all at once, Tommy. She, apparently she was stacking up those level up points, and once she got the Force, man, she soared. She was level 60 right off the bat.
Funny how all the female Jedi suddenly have these, undiscovered, Jedi powers that the male could find every time.
Space Dave, the other thing I think that is broken in this, and this really, I think, goes to the heart of Dave Filoni being a hack. I hate to say that, but he's a hack. He's supposed to know Star Wars better than just about anybody. He's supposed to be this phenomenal writer. Kathleen Kennedy put him with Jon Favreau because he knows the heart of George Lucas. And yet here we have the ghost of Anakin appearing in a completely different galaxy, watching over Ahsoka, and same said ghost is so lazy, apparently, he never can show up to be like, hey, grandson, maybe don't worship that melted helmet of mine. Or, hey, dear son Luke, who brought me back to the light and saved my soul, don't kill your nephew. But instead, no, he'll never do any of that. He'll let all of this play out. And Anakin will only appear for Ahsoka, one of Dave Filoni's creations. Space Dave, how bad and broken is this now?
I mean, I've been listening to everybody and inputting, and I think we have a lot of different perspectives about how we particularly see Star Wars as a franchise. I mean, it depends on how old you are and what connection you have to it. My childhood goes back far enough to say I remember the original. I saw Empire in the theaters. I saw Return of the Jedi in the theaters. That's how old I am, but I was also very young at the time. So there's a deep connection to Star Wars. And it has been somewhat, I hate to use this word, it's been violated. And I think that's what we're trying to get at. I mean, but you do have to consider there's the expanded universe, and a lot of people never even read or delved into the comics, or like Lauren he's like an encyclopedia of that knowledge. But most fans are stuck either with the original trilogy, and then the prequels, which were pretty good overall, and then to the dumpster fire trash that we have now. And I think those two generations that are the prequels and the original Star Wars, don't know what's going on because nothing makes sense, as we're all getting to here. Like nothing is consistent, nothing makes sense. And especially this, I'm personally insulted that we would make this about witchcraft at this point. And that just tells me at the end of the day, Filoni does not understand whatsoever the source material. And the only heart of Lucas that he has is the one that he probably pulled out of his chest when George wasn't looking, like in Mortal Kombat or something, you know, and finished him. Because this
I'm convinced the sword was a World of Warcraft sword, Space Dave. I think that
probably
was the
that's true. That's probably
truths.
yeah. Let's mix it into that. He just thrust it in there, and that was it. But
did you like how Morgan suddenly gets superpowers? How up until that she's witchy, but then they're like, no, you're going to be super witchy now because we're going to shoot magic beams into your eyeballs.
Yeah, but
no explanation of any of it.
It's a personal insult to, like, you don't really understand what, like, the concept. Was it similar? Like, is it fantasy? Yes, absolutely. It's sci-fi fantasy. It's not like Star Trek, as many people has pointed out, which is absolutely true. But at the end of the day, it is definitely not, you know, magic, and it never was. And when they started introducing that, to me, I was like, you guys don't have a clue what you're doing. Like, you're just trying to, you're trying to make the Force what George never made it, personally. And it never demonstrated that in any of the movies prior to this.
Yeah.
Well, I think that started with Rise of Skywalker and Rey and Kylo being able to, you know, pass lightsabers to each other through time and space with no issue.
It's so bad when you. It's even bad when you say it.
Yeah, it's a total redunculousness, right? Like it's like, yeah, when I watched that movie, I was excited just like everybody else that Disney, because we saw what they did with at the time, at least with Marvel, and that they they had ignited a passion in us as fans as well. They did a pretty good job with Marvel. I'm sure they'll do the same with Star Wars, but little did we know who was actually in control of it, which was Kathleen Kennedy. So, and it's pretty obvious by any comments made by George or especially Steven Spielberg that she was I don't know how she got to where she was. We won't even get into that conversation, but she just does not appreciate it, and she's trying to rewrite history. And Dave Filoni's a hack as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I could not watch through Rebels personally because it was too childish and it was all over the place. And again, it was introducing like the world. Everybody is all excited about the world between worlds only because they believe it could be used to reset the garbage that's happened now, right? So I get this impression that we're desperate as fans for a way out of this torture chamber. It's like we're all in Saw at this point, and we're about like we want to get out of this room and live, and we want to save Star Wars at the end of the day because we're passionate. We're passionate.
I got to admit, like I've never like Space Dave. I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head that Lucasfilm is completely disregarding our generation that grew up with the original trilogy and the prequels. And, and I'll admit, like, I've never been a big follower of Star Wars. I mean, I've seen all the movies, I know about the characters. I was never, into the comic books. And, I was more like some of the other cartoons of the 80s I was more interested in. But I will say, I will never forget when I went to the theater to see The Last Jedi. I was with a buddy of mine he's a big Star Wars fan. And I will never forget the scene where Laura Dern's character, I cannot remember her name because she was so relevant to begin with. But I will never forget the scene where she jumps to light speed to basically smash through the Star Destroyer, and thinking to myself, well, damn, if it's that easy, why couldn't they have just done that to the Death Star way back when? I just remember watching that scene thinking, okay, well, that's kind of stupid.
It is stupid because it doesn't fit any of the physics. Like, it's like you said, if it could be done here, you could win every single space battle you have, whether that be the enemy or the good guys. So, and why you just put a stupid droid on the ship and let him do it, right? Like, why sacrifice a person? So,
there's
which
two
is another big
why
plot.
You guys are right on this. By the way,
there's a big plot point. Why did the general's an idiot? Put an R2 unit or whatever in there and let it do. It flies every other ship anyway. So why didn't it just do it? So. Well, there's so much logical fallacies, and I didn't even watch the next the Rise of Palpatine. I was so insulted as a fan, and I'm like you. I'm an original fan. I didn't read all the comics. I did read the Zahn novels and such. but there was a passion. I grew up, as you said, watching 80s. I'm an 80s kids and early 90s kids, right? So at the end of the day, there's so many fallacies, so many logic, and we're always trying to apologize. And I appreciate Lauren, but he's always trying to find a way out of this trap, right? Like every time I watch him, I'm like, poor Lauren. He's trying to, he's a poor guy. I feel for him in that.
Well, the problem is he's got those two ingredients that I think you share with him. One is he cares about the franchise, and the second is he has a very high IQ. And those are the two ingredients that are missing from things like The Last Jedi, from The Rise of Palpatine, and from Ahsoka. I mean, let's just be honest. I hate to be offensive, but we're not dealing with high IQ writing here. I'm not trying to make a claim about the writers, but the writing here is 5th grade or 4th grade level. This is extraordinarily poor.
There's that term, suspend disbelief, I believe it is, right? Like, there's only so far most people will go before the suspension of disbelief, right?
Yeah.
And if you're any way attached to that world to begin with, then there's going to be you're going to withdraw even faster than a normal person with the suspense of disbelief, which is, this makes no sense. But as you said, the writing is terrible. Like, objectively, the writing is terrible. The acting, although not all the actors or actresses are terrible normally, but it's like the direction. Today, earlier, I was thinking, well, Ahsoka's just, these guys are pretty good actors, most of them, but they're doing a terrible job. And then I reflect back on even Hayden Christensen, the way he was directed in the sequels. I mean, we all had comments, let's be honest, like, especially the poor Jake Lawrence and stuff, like, Yahoo, it was terrible acting. The scripts were okay, but whoever was directing, which was Lucas, he was doing a weird job with his direction. Again, it's about who's directing and writing this, and it's Dave Filoni. He's the only common denominator in all of this, and he does a terrible job, which is why I couldn't get through half of the stuff he's written. I know some people are very passionate about him, and that's okay, but objectively, he's not a very good script writer.
Let me say this, and then I want to get Tommy in. But the way that I knew that we had a qualitatively terrible script here, and I know that there's some people out there in the chat who enjoyed Ahsoka, and I'm not trying to, rain on your parade, but when the solution to stopping the zombie stormtroopers was to close the doors, it begged the question: if there are 37 doors along this staircase that can all be shut like this, why did Thrawn not shut the door? And if Thrawn is not smart enough to shut the doors, then I'm sorry, you can't write an intelligent bad guy if you don't have intelligent writing to start off with. So there's no way you're ever going to deliver to me some sort of super genius evil guy that should be an intellectual threat to the heroes, because you don't have the ability to invent those sorts of mind games that he would play, because he can't close the doors. Tommy?
Well, I mean, I think somebody else had said it best, and I'm not sure if it was on one of your videos or on another one that I saw, but Thrawn is basically a dumb person's ideal of a smart person, essentially. And what really kind of drives me up a wall a little bit is the fact that I've just gotten off of Twitter the last few days, kind of like seeing people's reactions to Ahsoka and whatnot. And I don't know if they're bots or if they're shills or if they're just really meaning it, but people are going on about how much of a genius Thrawn was. Like, he was so well written, and they loved Ahsoka. They thought it was fantastic, and I'm kind of sitting there reading this stuff, and I'm like, I feel like Mugatu. Am I on crazy pills or something? Did we watch the same thing?
It's
great reference.
Is it gaslighting? But there's two things that I see. It's probably bots, but it could also be. There's no offense to. I'm not trying to offend an entire generation, and my generation's not perfect, like the Gen X, but there is a little bit of oddity I'm finding that the writing style, at least, and that's just objective. Maybe it's just the people they're hiring, because I don't think scripts that way, but the writing has gotten worse and worse. There's camp writing, and then there's bad writing. There's a big difference between the two. Big difference. And I think we're in bad writing history right now.
Yeah, even some of the worst movies of the 80s have better writing than some of the best movies of today.
Yeah, at least they had good one-liners, right? If you're watching like a Stallone movie or something, or Arnold, you're getting good one-liners. You're getting some action. You know what you're watching. But
honestly, at this point, what I wish would happen I think that we need to petition Mel Brooks to make a sequel to Spaceballs and absolutely destroy what
That'd be
Disney has
awesome.
done to Star Wars.
Well, I mean,
It would be brutal.
I guarantee if you took the old Battlefield Earth movie and slapped it on Disney Plus right now, I'm sure you'd have people thinking like, wow, this is really well written. John
That is
Travolta's
such a great
amazing in
point.
this.
Yep. Well, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys saw the episode of Rick and Morty where Jerry is riding in the car and he turns on human music. He's in an artificial simulation. I feel like that's what I'm watching when I watch some of the Star Wars. I'm watching Star Wars stuff, but it's like, it's the lowest level denominator of stuff. And so I think we've reached a point now which is unique. We have been saying for a very long time that Star Wars is on the decline. Some people have said Star Wars is dead, etc. But we really have reached a point now where I don't think fans have someone to turn to, period. There is literally no one at Lucasfilm that could excite fans. Even Timothy Zahn, at this point, I don't think could excite fans simply because he has to come into a Lucasfilm that people are, they loathe. They loathe Lucasfilm. All right, folks, we very much hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you do indeed stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. This has not just been a conversation with members of the channel, but rather this is a commentary that you should join in. And the way you do it, well, you drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. A mind is a terrible thing to waste, so waste it not here. No, we cover your comments. We care about what you think. And wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
No, hey Thrawn, what you doing? Thinking about Rome?
No, I wasn't. But thanks. Now I lost the game.
Dang it. Now I lost the game. Oh,
No.
Well, now you're a double loser.
Hey guys,
Game.
you know what would help you in your grief? Forgetting those things and filling your mind with articles from thatparkplace.com and using that website as a launching pad to get you lost in thought with all of the team from there.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, well, Flora, would you look down here?
I hate you. Now,